Hey, what's up? It's Nathan from Gotcha SEO Academy, and in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to write an introduction for your content. So outside of your headline, the intro in your content is the second most important part of the entire piece. So if you're fortunate enough for a reader to get past the headline and get into the intro, what you want to do is you want to hook them so that they continue on through the content. Do not take writing your intro lightly. And so in this video, I'm just going to show you a couple different strategies that you can use to hook your reader and force them to keep reading so that eventually they may end up sharing your content on social, or they may have a blog of their own and they may want to link to your content because they found it so valuable. Or even better, they may even become a customer for your business. But the first step to achieving all of those things is getting them to continue on through your content past the introduction. So before I show you some tactics for writing an intro, just remember that your target keyword should be somewhere in the beginning of your content. And so for me personally, I like to put the keyword right in the first sentence after the headline. That way it's abundantly clear what that content is about. But after that, your whole entire strategy should be to persuade your reader to continue reading on. Everything else I'm going to show you in this lesson is going to do exactly that. So the first tactic you can use after you've written your first sentence that includes your keyword is to start with an interesting fact or statistic. And so obviously this fact or statistic shouldn't be boring. And secondly, it shouldn't be an overused fact or statistic. So if something's really well known in your industry, then you shouldn't be using that because it's not really going to hook anyone or anyone that has at least base knowledge of your industry. So to show you how this works, here's an example from BBC. In their introduction paragraph, they said, workers distracted by email and phone calls suffer a fall in IQ more than twice that found in marijuana smokers, new research has claimed. So obviously, if you were someone who was concerned about how distracted your employees are because of their phone and email, then this would be something that would hook you and force you to keep reading this article on BBC. So the second strategy you can use is to use mental imagery. Or think in pictures. This mental imagery technique gets your readers to leverage their own imagination. And so to show you an example of this, here is an introduction from Buffer. And if you ever want to look at how to structure content very well and how to create persuasive content, then I highly recommend that you check out Buffer's blog because they are very, very good. So here's their introduction. They said, imagine that you've written a blog post that can help thousands of people solve a really painful problem. So if you were someone who is struggling with your blog or someone that knows you can have an impact in the world, but you just don't know how really to get your message out there, then this type of mental imagery would force someone to keep reading this blog post on Buffer. So the third strategy is to start with the end of a story. So basically what you can do is you can just give the reader a result that you achieved and then use the blog post to explain how you got that result. And this works extremely well because you're leaving an open loop in your reader's mind. And so they will feel compelled to read the rest of your content to figure out how you were able to achieve that particular result. So the next strategy is to just be short and direct. And this works really well if you believe that your ICA is a very busy person. They don't have a ton of time to read a descriptive introduction. And so a great example is from ProBlogger.net. And they just said, want to maximize sharing of your content on Facebook? Here are 7 tips that are sure to help. And as you can tell, there is no ambiguity in this introduction. You know exactly what you're getting within 2 seconds. And to be honest, this is how most of your introduction should be because the attention span of people online is very, very short. The next strategy is just to simply ask your reader a question. So here's an example from pickthebrain.com. They just said, what do people say about you when you're not around? So naturally, this type of question can make you have feelings of insecurity. So you want to continue reading and figure out what the heck they're even talking about. So ultimately, a good question will spark curiosity in your reader's mind, and they will want to continue reading your content so they can figure out the answer, quote unquote, in their own mind. The next strategy is to use multiple choice questions. And I don't recommend that you use this one too often, but it is a good way to vary up your introductions in case you feel like each of your content assets kind of have the same one. So from time to time, you should be trying to mix things up so that your readers stay engaged. And so here's an example from thechangeblog.com. All they said was pop quiz. Which of these do you agree with? Number one, intelligence is fixed at birth. Number two, some people are creative, others aren't. Number three, you can become a world-class expert through enough practice, whatever your starting point. And number four, you can change your personality. And so as you can tell, they're toying with many different ICAs in this situation. But if you are one of their ICAs, you are definitely going to want to figure out what they are talking about. And so you're going to continue reading through this blog post. So the last and final strategy I'm going to show you is to lead with the story in your introduction. And so I'm going to be getting deeper into this concept of telling stories because it is so incredibly powerful and is something you should be using in almost every piece of content that you put out. And the reason for that is because people love stories. And not only that, when you tell a story and when you open up, people will become more attached to your brand. You want your readers and you want the people who visit your website or interact with your brand to feel like they know you. And so storytelling is one of the best ways to achieve that goal. So to quickly show you an example, here's one from quicksprout.com. Neil said, when you start a company, it becomes your baby. And one of the hardest things to do is let go of it. And so what Neil's trying to do here is he's trying to relate with you as the reader and with you as someone who owns a company. And as you can imagine, this is a very, very powerful technique. So that's all I'm going to show you for creating an intro for your content asset. And below this video, I'm going to have several other tactics you can use. But for now, don't overthink this. Just grab one of these tactics and use it for your intro. And then most importantly, as I continue to pound into your mind, make sure that you test. One of the best ways to know if your headline and your introduction are performing well is to analyze how long people are staying on your actual piece of content. And then also a bunch of other qualifying factors such as your social shares and your backlinks are other ways to determine whether you've done a good job with your headline and your intro. And so that's all there is to creating an intro. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.